stuck in my mind, which he said that, look, realize that the moment you apply a full lockdown, you're changing the nature of the disease. You're moving from a non-fatal disease to a fatal disease in the minds of people. And once you've done that, then to reverse that, that is going to take significant amount of time, and it's going to take a lot of effort. And he also said that, look, don't view the lockdown as a on-off switch. It's not going to be an on-off switch, because once you have moved into a lockdown, switching it off again, it's not going to be easy. It's going to be extremely complicated. I liked your point about we looked west and not east. Why do you think we looked west?
I guess, as some people say, it's the first time that something like this, as opposed to TB or pneumonia or diarrhea, something as simple as diarrhea that apparently kills 100,000 largely children in India. Here is something that struck in the heart of the developed world, and when the rich and famous get affected, it always makes a bigger headline. As someone said in the very early days of this problem, that 8,000 kids die of starvation in Africa every day. Who cares, beyond the point? In civil society, we are not even aware of this fact. So I think primarily the sensation was because affluent people in developed countries were vulnerable, and perhaps some people inferred कि अगर इनको ऐसा हो सकता है तो फिर हम तो कहाँ के नहीं रहे, this kind of feeling. And that is why I have often said to people that, to my mind as a layman, I saw from the beginning that there were four choices before us. At one extreme, on the left, if I may say so, is the choice of a hard lockdown, as you said, which implies a almost airtight, impervious lockdown. And to the best of my knowledge, this has not happened anywhere in the world. Because to physically constrain yourself to your home and see absolutely no one. On the other extreme, I would say, is business as usual. Just ignore it, carry on, jo hoga hoga type of thing. Nobody says this either. So everybody's trying to find a middle path, I think, between these two extremes. I think, unfortunately, India not only looked west, it went to the wild west, I think, in the sense we stayed more towards the impervious side. We tried to implement a hard lockdown, but which was still porous. So I think we have ended up with the worst of both worlds. On the one hand, a porous virus makes sure that the porous lockdown makes sure that the virus will still exist. And as you said, it is still waiting to hit you when you unlock. So you have not solved that problem. But you have definitely decimated the economy. You flattened the wrong curve. It's not the infection curve, it's the GDP curve. This is what we have ended with, the worst of both worlds. In my view, what should have been done is something more right of center, which is the kind of stuff that we are hearing out of Japan and Sweden. And people, when they hear about this in terms of being articulated as herd immunity, tend to think that herd immunity means, let the vulnerable die. It doesn't mean that at all. They're missing the details that whether it's in terms of sanitization, masks, distancing, Sweden, Japan, etc. are following all these practices. But they are not trying to go further into the unproductive zone, as you said, and make something that is relatively benign and manageable appear to be fatal and beyond control. So I think, unfortunately, we have a quasi-hard lockdown, I would say, which has given us the worst of both worlds.
And looking at our situation, it's completely different. We have migrants, we have daily wage labor, and for some reason we looked west. Interesting question to me is, why didn't we look internally for our own solution? Instead of looking to the west or even to the east, why didn't we say, okay, we're actually a confident country. Let's look at ourselves and let's come out with an Indian solution, which is, sort of what you do with your motorcycles. So why was that not the natural impulse?
So if you were to kind of have the luxury of going back to middle of March, जब प्रधानमंत्री जी ने पहले वो जनता कर्फ्यू अनाउंस किया, फिर उन्होंने the first lockdown announced किया.
Yeah.
If you could go back then, to your mind, how would you have crafted a different roadmap for the last 3 months?
Look, hindsight is 2020. Okay, so it's much easier for me to now tell you how I would have crafted it. But what our discussion internally in the Congress party was at the time that the response has to be decentralized. The central government has to operate as a support system and as an enabler. There are certain things that the central government needs to do, air traffic, railways, etc., and that it does. But then it moves the battle to the district, moves the battle to the chief ministers, and allows them and enables them to fight. Now, if you look at what has happened after the lockdown, which by the way, I've been calling a failed lockdown because it's the only lockdown in the world where the disease is actually increasing after we're opening up.
Sure.
What you're finding is you're going back to that anyway. The central government has backed off and has now said, okay, we are going to be forced to leave it to the states. So the correct response is actually happening organically. Because that's
but now it is happening. But
no, it's too late.
To our perception as a common citizen, it is now happening as a passing of the buck, not as a passing of strategy.
Well, that's fine. That might be the case, but the result is that India has had a 2-month pause button, and then India is now going back and reacting the way it should have reacted on day one, and now the country has taken over. Right? And then you can see different strategies coming out. You can see a strategy in Punjab, you can see a strategy in Chhattisgarh, you can see a strategy in Maharashtra. Some will do better than the others, but you've got a more bespoke response where your costs will suddenly drop. The ability to deal with the situation will improve. That's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is, and I think this is absolutely fundamental. I saw what the Germans have done and what some of the Americans have done, what the Koreans are doing, what the Japanese have done. Massive, massive injection of money to save the economy. And it doesn't matter. Look, I'm speaking to a big business guy. It doesn't matter. You don't view it like big business, small business, laborer, not laborer. You view it as our biggest resource is our economy. We have to, at all cost, protect our economy. Whoever has to be supported right now should be supported, period, the end. So that would be the second component of a strategy. Some people argue, support the small and medium businesses. Absolutely, 100%. But there's a link between small and medium businesses and Mr. Bajaj. Small and medium businesses cannot operate without the big businesses. So you have to see it as a holistic structure.